Hello, my name's David Seaman, and this is the Three Lions Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions Podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. I hope I find you well. How are you? You good? After a quiet January, finally we have something to really talk about, something to get our teeth into. The recent episode I previewed the Nations League draw. That took place on Thursday the 12th of February. Now I'm going to take a look at that in a moment. But I also took a look at some of the players who made a move during the January transfer window. Since then, there have been a couple more, which I'll update you on in a moment. But first, don't forget you can follow the show on social media. Please do. Just search Three Lions Podcast on all your socials. Just give it a like, give it a follow, give it some love. But first, slightly unrelated to the football. Well, I guess totally unrelated, really. I took a trip to Milan for the Winter Olympics. I just wanted to say, what an event. It's just a shame that it was spread across a vast distance. Milan to the area of Cortina appeared a bit of a challenge, and then accommodation once there was hard. So we stuck to Milan for some speed skating and ice hockey. I did manage to get to take a look at the San Siro. So I guess there's your football-related angle. I have been lucky enough to actually see a game inside it. It was a couple of years back, wasn't it now, when we lost there in the Nations League. But I thought, well, I'm so close to it, I need to see it one last time before that wrecking ball takes a swing at it. Because, well, it is set to be demolished. I don't think there's an actual date for it yet, but taking in the surrounding area, there's clearly preparation work going on, lots of fences around the perimeter, there's lots of lorries coming and going. There's a huge area adjacent to the stadium that is, I'm guessing, is prime land for the new stadium to be built, which is the plan for them to be able to host the 2032 Euros. You couldn't have a 2032 Euros without having it in Milan, could you? Surely. But quickly, back to the Olympics. Really recommend it. And with the next one being held in the French Alps in 2030, I'm already looking towards that. Let's get some of that housekeeping out of the way. Those extra January transfers, Russell, I hear you say. What were they? Well, let me tell you. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, remember him? Formerly of Southampton, Arsenal, Liverpool. He was most recently at Besiktas in Turkey, where he seemed to be doing okay for a couple of years from the outside looking in. This is despite overcoming an injury, and it appears he fell out with the manager, Gianni van Bronckhorst. I think he wasn't he previous manager of Rangers, I think. In total, he played just under 40 games over in Turkey before they terminated his contract, which is where Celtic picked him up. So he's moved to Parkhead on a 6-month deal, scored on his debut against Livingston. Find it amazing that he is still only 32. Now, he made 35 appearances in his time for England, scoring on 7 occasions. Made his debut away to Norway in 2012 in the friendly. Perhaps you went to that. His last cap came away to Kosovo in 2019. And he is one of only 7 players to score away against Brazil in Brazil. James Ward-Prowse, one of those players that, well, he never really made it in an England shirt, did he? Gareth Southgate was never really able to squeeze him in to his formation. 11 caps, 2 goals. That was whilst he was at Southampton. He you don't want to pigeonhole someone, but he was sort of a free kick and penalty specialist. I say was, I guess he could still be. He had a positive time at West Ham recently after Southampton. He moved to Forest on loan, and then in January this year, he has made the switch to Burnley. And the last player to make a move, and I think he's a good one for his own mental health, well, I hope so, Raheem Sterling. After being exiled by Chelsea, he was having to train away from the main first team. He has now left them by mutual agreement, and he is signed for Dutch side Feyenoord. Obviously, he had the bulk of his playing career at Liverpool and Manchester City. He had a loan period at Arsenal where he failed to really kick on. But for England, I guess you could say he really excelled. 82 caps, perhaps his goal return of just 20 was maybe less than he should have got. But he made his debut under Roy Hodgson in 2012 away to Sweden in this was the 4-2 defeat. I'm sure you remember that one. Zlatan's 4-goal game. Raheem Sterling, he was just 17 in that game. He played under Sam Allardyce as well before becoming a favourite of Gareth Southgate. And who can forget his contribution during Euro 2020, scoring 3 goals against Croatia, the Czech Republic and Germany. And his last cap, well, that came in the defeat to France at the Qatar World Cup. I think it's safe to say that none of these 3 will be picked by Thomas Tuchel anytime soon, but you got to wish them well. Now, just mentioned Thomas Tuchel there. On the morning of the Nations League draw, the 12th, it was announced that he and the FA had extended his contract to see him through to Euro 2028 rather than expiring after this World Cup. And I've got to say, I'm in a bit of two minds about it. Although primarily it does give us the stability going forward, which primarily is a good thing. But on the other hand, I'm looking at it like, come on, we've not played a World Cup match yet, which was the main objective of him coming in being manager, to put a second star on the shirt. Remember that? But so far he's been in charge of 10 games, won 9, lost 1, and I'm thinking of those 10 games, 8 were World Cup qualifiers and games really we should have won, and we did, regardless of who was in charge. Wales, Senegal, both friendlies. Senegal, as I'm sure you know, was our 1 defeat. And I know we have Uruguay and Japan to come in March. And as I'll mention in a moment, New Zealand and Costa Rica before the World Cup. But what's the feeling if, and it is a big if we bomb out in the group stage or in an early knockout round? How are we feeling about him then? Obviously, there is the other side of the coin. He could guide us all the way. And it will then look like a great deal for the FA. And I guess looking at it like that, you could say it's a bit of a win-win for them. Because you look at the state of the managerial situation of clubs in the Premier League at the moment. Come after the World Cup, I anticipate there's going to be quite a bit of a managerial merry-go-round. And if clubs want to talk to Tuchel, then there's going to have to be compensation to pay. At the time of recording, Manchester United have Michael Carrick as temporary manager. Spurs have got shot of Thomas Tuchel, and they've brought in Igor Tudor, the Croatian, just as a temporary fix. I mean, they're probably eyeing up Pochettino again. After the World Cup, you can see him maybe leaving the USA position. Nottingham Forest have ditched Sean Dyche, so although I think they've picked someone up, will Liverpool stick with Arne Slot? So if someone wants Tuchel at some point, they're going to have to put their hand in their pocket. And it's going to have to be a deep pocket. But also, if I'm honest, if Tuchel was to go tomorrow, I can't see anyone any better at the moment to fill his boots, especially if we were to look at English candidates. So actually, I think it is the best decision going forward. And finally, in our little news roundup, we've finally announced our pre-World Cup friendly opponents in the awfully titled South Florida series. New Zealand on Saturday the 6th of June, followed by Costa Rica on Wednesday the 10th of June. This is ahead of our first World Cup game against Croatia on the 17th in Texas. Now, at the time of recording, there are no venues announced, but there was talk of the New Zealand game being played at the Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. But nothing was confirmed then or now. And I'm looking at a map. Is Tampa, is that really South Florida? Looks middle Florida to me. It's a big old area. But taking a look at the map, South Florida, it features Miami, who obviously have their stadium. They obviously have a following, what with Messi playing there for Inter Miami. But there are a few other options too. So we shall wait and see. But, I mean, the general consensus is Costa Rica and New Zealand aren't exactly the toughest of opponents going into a World Cup, but we can only assume that not everyone else was available or they'd already picked their friendlies and who to play. So that's who we're stuck with. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, I will have an episode of England in the USA to release, and I'll get that out once the venues have been confirmed. Right, let's take a look at the Nations League draw. There's some stuff to unpick here, I can tell you. I managed to get home from Milan just in time to see this. But those that saw me tweeting on Twitter at the time, I somehow managed to think we'd drawn Wales. I don't know, I was making dinner, watching Portugal's Pepe make the draw, catching up on news, opening mail. I wasn't concentrating. So it's a little surprise to me 5 minutes later when I realised that we'd drawn Czechia rather than Wales. I must concentrate more. It's not the first time I've said that or heard that. It was something that my school report often said. Some things never change. Anyway, along with Czechia, this really annoys me that we now call them Czechia. I know it's their name, but I was always calling them the Czech Republic, and I'm going to get confused switching between the two. But yeah, we drew the Czech Republic, we drew Spain and Croatia in Group A3. Now, the following day, the dates were announced. So let's quickly roll through those. Match day 1, Saturday the 6th of September, home to Spain. Match day 2, Tuesday the 29th of September, we're away to the Czech Republic. Match day 3, Saturday the 3rd of October, we are away to Croatia. Now, I will come back to this one in a moment. Match day 4, Tuesday the 6th of October, home to the Czech Republic. Match day 5, Thursday the 12th of November, we're home to Croatia. And then finally, match day 6, the 15th of November, away to Spain. So drawing Spain and Croatia, well, it gives immediate 2018 Nations League memories when the competition was in its infancy. It was its first outing. Spain were our first ever Nations League opponents when we lost to them 2-1 at Wembley. And of course, we last met them in the Euros final in Berlin a couple of years back. 2-1 again. Croatia were our second opponent in that same qualifying group, back when there were only 3 teams per group rather than the 4 that we now know. We drew 0-0 with them in Rijeka in a game played behind closed doors. That was because of a game between Croatia and Italy in 2015 where fans bizarrely sprayed a swastika symbol on the pitch. It was their first UEFA game since that, and as fans we were the victims. The punishment for Croatia was that they had to play their game behind closed doors. And as well, that was the first ever game that England had played behind closed doors. Although I know a good few made the trip and stood from a vantage point on a hill. You could hear them on the telly. Great work. Back then, it was 93 days since we had lost to the Croats in the Russian World Cup semi-final. So fast forward to now, we are once again drawn against Croatia, and once again, it's behind closed doors. Shortly after the draw, the official Croatian FA Twitter account said, and I quote, "Due to UEFA sanctions, the first home match versus England will be played behind closed doors, whilst Croatia fans will not attend the first away match at Czechia." So I had a look into it. This is because of their fans' behaviour in a fixture against France in March of last year, which was the Nations League quarter-finals. Now, they got done for use of pyrotechnics, use of lasers by their fans, and their FA got slapped on the wrist because of blocked passageways in the stadium. That was in the home leg. Then the away leg, the Croatian fans caused damage to the Stade de France. So once again, we bear the brunt of the disciplinary measures that UEFA have put on Croatia. And ironically, it comes once again after we play them in the World Cup. This time, rather than 93 days, it's 108 days between the two fixtures. You can't make it up, could you? You couldn't have made that up. But you have to ask, though, why aren't these potential issues raised earlier or made obvious by UEFA or the relevant FAs, made public by the relevant FAs, so supporters don't go through throwing money at flights for games that aren't accessible? We all know how supporters do things. I've done it. You see a fixture, you're not 100% sure of where the venue is, but you know you got an idea. You lay your money down for a flight, but if you know in advance, or the FA was to say, as soon as that draw is announced, Croatia will be behind closed doors. I mean, they must all know that, but as down to fans, we shouldn't need to be checking on that they've got a potential ban hanging over their head. But I saw on the Twitter account, Football Meets Data. Let me find that. Let me go back to that one. Where is it? By the end of 2026, Croatia will have met England on 14 different occasions, more than any other team in international football. Obviously realise that Croatia are a relatively new nation. Twice we've met at the World Cup, twice we've met at the Euros, 4 times in World Cup and Euro qualifiers. This will be the 4th time in UEFA Nations League, and we've twice met in friendlies. 14 times we've met Croatia. They're turning into the Poland of the 1970s and 1980s. The last time we met Croatia was during Euro 2020 in 2021 in the opening game, where I mentioned Raheem Sterling. He scored the only goal that separated the two sides. And then there's the Czech Republic, Czechia, a team who we last played again back in Euro 2020. 2 games after that Croatian one, and once again, where Raheem Sterling scored the only goal. And obviously people will be looking at flights and venues for the away games, and with the situation in Croatia, that eliminates going there now. And we can assume that Prague will be the venue for our game in September, just as it was in 2019 when we lost 2-1. That's where I've banked on with my flights. And that just leaves us with Spain in November, when we faced them in 2018, winning 3-2. That was in Seville. Who can forget Eric Dyer on Sergio Ramos? 2015 was in Alicante, That was a good trip, that one. I remember that. 2009, also in Seville. But you have to go back to 2004 when we last played in Madrid. And the potential of playing there again, well, with regards to the Bernabeu, last November it hosted an NFL game there on the 16th. And as it appears, Real Madrid and the city of Madrid have signed some sort of multi-year contract with the NFL to host a game yearly. And I confess I don't know a huge amount about the NFL, but if it was last November, you would expect that it will be in November of this year. All hypothetical, of course, and it could well be played in Atletico Madrid, the stadium there. But I've seen also that recent home prestigious matches for the Spanish have been in Seville. Not at, well, as I say, we played them at the ground that Real Betis play at. But there's a stadium called Estadio La Cartuja. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a neutral stadium with a capacity of 70,000. But please don't take my word for it that it will be there. It really could be anywhere. Because remember, there are a few Spanish islands that host La Liga games. And with regards to announcing a venue, I'm pretty sure they have to advise UEFA 120 days before the fixture. But that doesn't mean they have to make it public to fans 120 days prior to the fixture. And just to point out, as I mentioned on Twitter, 120 days prior to the fixture is the 18th of July, the day before the World Cup final. So then I'm looking at the 3 home fixtures. We have a Saturday, a Tuesday and a Thursday. And initially, you'd expect Wembley. You'd say Wembley, especially as they'll have missed out on those 2 June fixtures to the South Florida series. You'd expect them to intend to host and want to host them. But I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, look, the Premier League will be taking a break for this extended international window between the 21st of September and the 6th of October. Could that mean we fit a game on the road within that window? I'm inclined to say the Czech Republic one on the 6th rather than the Spain home game on the Saturday. Again, I could be wrong. So how are we going to do? Well, first and foremost, it is a tough group. Spain, number 1 team in the world. Croatia just missed out on pot 1 in the recent World Cup draw. And obviously with any tournament, the priority is to win it. At this moment in time, I can see it being 2nd or 3rd place. Top might be a step too far given Spain's dominance. So either a quarter-final spot or a relegation playoff, which clearly I don't want. Perhaps nearer the time after the World Cup, I will reevaluate my opinion. So that's us. Let's take a quick look around at some of the other groups in the tournament. Group A1 looks tasty. Previous winners France in with Italy, Belgium and Turkey. France you'd expect to qualify from that. And then you can probably toss a coin as to where the others will come. Group A2, Germany, Netherlands. Nice local spicy derby, that one. Along with Serbia and Greece. I think it could well end up in that order. And Group A4, Portugal, Denmark, Norway and Wales. Norway, I think, could spring a surprise if they keep Haaland fit. And Portugal, you'd expect also to qualify. So let me remind you, top 2 teams head towards the quarterfinals to be played between the 25th and 30th of March next year, 2027. It's 2-legged. Winners of those go on to the finals in June of next year. And as to where it will be hosted, as before, it depends on who are in the final 4. UEFA will choose 2 stadiums in 2 local cities. That's what they've done before. You may remember 2019 when we made it there, Portugal, the host country, and the eventual winners. And the two grounds were Guimarães and Porto. 2021 was hosted by Italy, two grounds, one in Turin, home of Juventus, and the San Siro in Milan. This one was won by France. 2023, won by Spain, was hosted by the Netherlands in both Rotterdam and Enschede, home of 20. And then in 2025, when Portugal won it again, hosted by Germany, who used Munich and Stuttgart. Be interesting if we were to get to the finals once again, and UEFA picked us, which I think is a possibility, given that we will be hosting Euro 2028. Obviously, you'd expect Wembley to be one of the hosting stadiums. I think London actually has got the potential to host two stadiums, perhaps Spurs ground, or if you look further up north, perhaps a stadium in Manchester and a stadium in Liverpool. Don't know. All hypothetical, I guess. So let's leave it there. What are your thoughts on the draw? Let me know. As I say, drop me a note on the socials. Just search 3 Lions Podcast, or you can email me, 3lionspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, as always, for listening. Always appreciated. I will be back with you very soon. Hope you can join me for it. So until then, take care of yourselves. Cheers.